welcome to the deep dive. We're skipping the pleasantries today because, honestly, we have a massive stack of material to get through.
You really do.
We are looking at the holy grail of English proficiency exams, achieving a band 9.0 in IELTS speaking. And for this, we are working directly from lesson materials provided by the English Center, the IELTS Focus. This is their phase 1. The examiner's blueprint.
And blueprint is exactly the right word. This isn't just, a list of tips.
Right.
The material from the IELTS Focus is trying to fundamentally shift your psychology. It's about moving you from being a test taker.
Someone who's scared of making mistakes.
Exactly. To an expert communicator.
I love that distinction. So the mission isn't don't screw up.
No, it's communicate effectively. The big secret, if you can call it that, isn't about avoiding error. It's about demonstrating full flexibility and naturalness.
Telling the robot in your head.
That's the goal.
Okay, let's get straight into the content. The source identifies 3 major myths that trip people up. And myth number 1 is the one I hear constantly. Big words lead to big scores.
Oh, the vocabulary trap. It's this belief that if you just swallow a thesaurus and, vomit it back out at the examiner, they'll be impressed.
But the reality is not that simple.
The reality is that high-band candidates prioritize precision, not complexity. If you use a $5 word in a 50-cent sentence, your score actually goes down.
Okay, so the source gives us 10 specific comparisons here, and I want to run through these because some of the Band 6 examples are unintentionally hilarious.
They really are.
I'm going to read the Band 6 version, the trying too hard version, and you give us the Band 9 correction from the text.
Let's do it.
All right, topic 1, hometown. Imagine someone looking you dead in the eye and saying, "My hometown possesses extraordinarily magnificent infrastructure."
Oh, wow. It sounds like a brochure from the 1950s. It's totally unnatural.
So what's the Band 9 version?
The Band 9 speaker just says something like, "My hometown has developed quite rapidly in recent years, and there are now plenty of modern facilities, especially parks and shopping centers."
See, that sounds like a real human being. Okay, topic 2, hobbies. Listen to this one. I derive immense exhilaration and unparalleled gratification from cinematic consumption.
Cinematic consumption? Who talks like that? The Band 9 version is simple, but it's precise.
Oh.
I really enjoy watching films because it helps me unwind after a long day and lets me escape into a different world for a while.
Unwind and escape. Those are the key words.
Exactly.
Topic 3, food. I have a profound inclination toward gastronomical experiences of superior quality.
You're not impressing anyone. Band 9 just keeps it real. I'm quite into street food, especially local dishes, because they're affordable and full of flavor.
Into street food. Much better. Okay, next up, work and study. Band 6 says, my academic trajectory is extraordinarily demanding.
Counts rehearsed. The Band 9 speaker shows some nuance. My course is pretty challenging at times, especially when deadlines pile up, but I find it rewarding overall.
Deadlines pile up. That's a great natural phrase.
It is.
Topic 5, technology. Technological proliferation has irreversibly revolutionized societal paradigms.
That is way too academic for part 1 of the test. Just bring it home.
And the Band 9 does that.
Yep. Technology has changed the way we live, especially how we communicate. I can't imagine getting through a day without my phone.
So much more grounded. Topic 6, friends. I maintain profoundly meaningful interpersonal affiliations.
Just say you have friends.
Right.
Band 9 says, I have a small circle of close friends, and we've known each other for years, so we really understand each other.
Topic 7, exercise. I engage in vigorous physical exertion to enhance my physiological endurance.
Unless you are a medical textbook, please don't say that. The Band 9 is simple. I try to work out a few times a week, mostly cardio, because it helps me stay fit and clear my head.
Clear my head. That's the idiomatic gold right there. Topic 8, weather. The climatic conditions are exceptionally temperate and aesthetically pleasing.
Aesthetically pleasing? Come on. The Band 9 is just honest. The weather here is usually warm and humid, which can be a bit uncomfortable, especially in the summer.
Topic 9, reading. I am profoundly captivated by literary compositions of philosophical profundity.
So memorized, a Band 9 speaker might say. I tend to read nonfiction, especially books about psychology, because I'm curious about how people think.
And finally, travel. I am immensely enthralled by the prospect of international exploration.
Generic, forced. Band 9 is better. I love traveling abroad because it gives me a chance to experience different cultures and step outside my comfort zone.
Step outside my comfort zone. That's that precision we're talking about. The lesson here is so clear. Stop trying to sound smart.
Right. Stop performing. You need to start communicating. Precision beats complexity every single time.
Let's move to myth number 2 then. The native accent. The source says so many people think they need a perfect British or American accent to score high.
And that is completely false. Your accent is, for the most part, irrelevant.
So what matters?
Intelligibility.
Mm.
Can the examiner understand you without effort? That's the question.
Okay, so if I don't need a specific accent, what do I need for a high score in pronunciation?
You need rhythm. It really comes down to two things: connected speech and chunking.
So grouping words together?
Exactly. Grouping words into meaningful units rather than speaking word by word like a robot. And crucially, using the schwa.
The schwa. Break that down for us.
The schwa is that weak sound, that little sound. In English, we don't pronounce every syllable with equal strength. If you do, you sound mechanical.
Like, today I'm going to the store.
Yeah, that's painful to listen to. Natural English just glides over the unimportant words. Today I'm going to the store. The two and the become these tiny little sounds.
And that creates fluency.
That's what creates it.
Which brings us to myth number 3. Memorization versus spontaneity. I feel like a lot of people, to feel safe, they try to memorize scripts.
And that is a fatal error. Examiners are trained to spot memorized answers. If your rhythm or your speed suddenly changes or your intonation goes flat because you're reciting...
Your score drops?
Immediately. Your fluency score just plummets.
So what is the Band 9 standard here?
Spontaneity. A natural rhythm. Light hesitation is actually okay if it's natural. And emotional authenticity.
The source material gives us 10 Band 9 natural responses to show this. These aren't robotic. They show flexible phrasing. So I'll be the examiner again. Let's walk through why these responses work.
Ready?
Examiner asks, do you like your hometown?
A bit 9 response might be, actually, I'm quite fond of it. It's got its flaws, sure, but there's something about the atmosphere that just feels familiar and comforting to me.
I like that actually at the start.
Right, and admitting it has flaws makes it sound honest. It's not a rehearsed speech about how perfect the city is.
Okay, next question. What do you usually do in your free time?
Well, it depends on my mood, really. Most days I'll just relax at home, maybe watch something or read a bit, but if I've had a stressful week, I might go out for a long walk to clear my head.
It depends on my mood. That's a great phrase to buy yourself some time.
And it shows flexibility. You aren't just giving one static answer, you're handling variables.
Question 3. Do you enjoy your work?
A good answer. For the most part, yes. It can be demanding at times, especially when deadlines pile up, but I like the sense of achievement I get when I finish something challenging.
That balances the good and the bad so nicely. Next, what's your favorite food?
I'd probably say something simple like pho. It's not just about the taste, it reminds me of home, so there's a bit of nostalgia attached to it.
Connecting food to memory, that's smart. Gives you more to talk about.
Exactly.
Do you like traveling?
Absolutely. I think traveling pushes me out of my comfort zone, which can be uncomfortable at first, but it's also when I grow the most.
Discussing personal growth. I like that. Do you read often?
I try to, although I go through phases. Sometimes I'll read every night before bed, and other times I barely touch a book for weeks.
I go through phases. That's so honest.
It is. It's not a perfect, plastic answer. It's human. Saying that makes you sound fluent, not flawless.
Question. Do you prefer a few close friends or many friends?
I lean towards having a small circle. I'd rather have a couple of people I genuinely trust than a large group I don't feel that connected to.
I lean towards great phrasing. Do you play any sports?
Not competitively, no. I do try to stay active, though mostly light workouts or going for a jog when I feel like I've been sitting too long.
It's a casual, realistic approach. Okay, what kind of music do you enjoy?
My taste changes depending on how I'm feeling. If I need energy, I'll listen to upbeat pop. But if I'm winding down, I prefer something softer and more mellow.
Winding down, another great phrasal verb. And finally, what kind of weather do you prefer?
I'm definitely more comfortable in cooler weather. When it's too hot and humid, I find it hard to concentrate, so mild temperatures suit me better.
It links the preference to a physical feeling to concentration.
Exactly. None of those sounded like a textbook. They sounded like a real conversation.
So now that we've busted the myths, let's get into phase 1.2 from the IELTS focus. This breaks down the 4 assessment criteria, the 4 pillars of your score.
Right. We have fluency, lexical resource, grammar, and pronunciation. Let's start with fluency and coherence, or FC.
What's the main thing the examiner is listening for here?
Effort. How much effort does it take for you to speak? And specifically, it comes down to the hesitation rule.
And what's that rule?
A Band 6 candidate pauses to find language. They're hunting for grammar or vocabulary. They go, what is a word?
I see.
A Band 9 candidate pauses to think of content. They're deciding what to say, not how to say it.
So how do you handle that pause without it looking like you've forgotten all your English?
You use natural fillers. Instead of just dead silence, you say, that's a tricky one. Let me see. It keeps the channel open while you think.
Okay, that makes sense. The second criterion is lexical resource, or LR. This goes back to our point about precision, doesn't it?
It does. It's about the rescue technique, being able to paraphrase when you get stuck. But mainly, it's about upgrading your vocabulary from generic to specific.
The source material has a precision drill for this. I love this part. I'm going to give you the boring common Band 6 phrase, and you give us the Band 9 upgrade from the handbook.
Let's upgrade them.
Band 6 on salary. Money's big.
So vague. Band 9 says competitive salary and long-term growth opportunities.
On stress. It is very stressful.
Band 9, demanding, particularly when deadlines overlap. It's specific.
On city life. Very crowded.
Band 9, densely populated, which makes commuting exhausting.
Technology. Very important.
Band 9, integral part of daily life.
Education. Helps a lot.
Band 9 plays a pivotal role in shaping interpersonal skills.
The environment. Pollution is bad.
Band 9 poses a serious public health risk.
Free time. Relax by watching.
Band 9, unwind, take a mental break.
Describing a friend. He is nice.
Band 9, he is considerate and always goes out of his way.
Motivation. Improve myself.
Band 9, refine my skills and broaden my perspective.
And finally, your career. Like my job.
Band 9, I find it fulfilling, particularly when I see tangible progress.
Those are huge upgrades. It really shows what precision means. It's not about length, it's about clarity.
Exactly. Money is big tells me nothing. Competitive salary tells me a whole story.
Okay, let's move to the third criterion. Grammatical range and accuracy, or GRA. Now, this is where people usually zone out. But the source lists 10 advanced Band 9 structures that are basically cheat codes.
They are, but the key is using the right structure for the purpose. Don't just throw them in for no reason.
Let's walk through them. First, the third conditional. The time traveler sentence.
Right, for a hypothetical past. If the government had invested more, the crisis might not have escalated. You're rewriting history.
Next is the mixed conditional. This one's tricky.
It links the past to the present. If more attention had been paid to mental health in schools, young people would be better equipped to cope with stress today. Past cause, present result.
Then we have inversion, the drama king sentence.
It creates emphasis instead of, we rarely consider. You say, rarely do we consider. It's just more powerful.
And the classic, not only.
Also,
The double whammy.
not only does technology streamline communication, but it also reshapes how relationships are formed.
Then there's the cleft sentence.
This puts a spotlight on one idea. What concerns me most is the lack of accountability. You're telling the examiner exactly what to focus on.
Similar to that is the it cleft, right?
It is long-term sustainability that should guide policy decisions. Same idea, different structure.
What about reduced relative clauses? Is this about efficiency?
Yes, packing more information in. Students exposed to diverse perspectives instead of students who are exposed to. It's cleaner, more sophisticated.
And the concessive clause. This one is for the diplomat.
While strict laws may deter certain crimes, they do little to address the underlying issues. You acknowledge the other side with while, then you make your real point.
The participle clause.
Having experienced both systems, I would argue that it sets up your authority.
And finally, nominalization, basically turning verbs into nouns.
Exactly. The rapid expansion of instead of because they expanded rapidly. It just sounds more objective and academic.
But the source has a big warning here. Band 9 speakers use these naturally.
Correct. If you force these into every sentence, you sound insane. You use them when you need to make a strong, specific point.
Which leads us to the final criterion, pronunciation. We already talked about the schwa, but the source has one more trick. Stress shifting.
Oh, this is fascinating. The meaning of a sentence changes entirely based on which word you hit the hardest.
Give us the example from the book.
Okay, take the sentence. I never said he stole the money.
Right?
If I say, I never said you stole the money, I'm strongly denying the action. I'm defending myself. But if I say, I never said he stole the money, what does that imply?
It implies someone else did.
Exactly. And if I say, I never said he stole the money.
Maybe he stole the jewelry instead.
Right. Band 9 speakers use that stress to convey subtle meaning without even changing the words.
Wow. We have covered a lot of ground here. The IELTS focus phase 1 is dense.
It is. But if you summarize the core lesson, it's this. Stop trying to impress the examiner with big words and robot noises. Start trying to communicate.
And the ultimate secret, according to the source.
Precision. Never use a fancy word unless you are 100% sure of its usage and it fits the context perfectly.
It's interesting to think about how all this applies beyond just the test.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking with precision, using natural rhythm, listening to the nuance in a question, these aren't just exam tricks. They are the skills that make you a compelling communicator in your real life, whether you're in a boardroom or at a dinner party.
That brings us to the end of this deep dive into phase 1 of the IELTS focus. Good luck with your preparation.
Keep practicing and stay flexible. Today, we are diving straight into the mechanics of high-level English communication. We're looking at exactly how to master IELTS, speaking at a band 9.0 level.
And we're really zoning in specifically on phase 2, part 1, the art of natural interaction.
Right, and just so you know where this is all coming from, this entire deep dive is based on the curriculum from the English Center, the IELTS focus.
Exactly. So this is straight from the source. No theories, just their proven methods.
So no fluff today.
Well,
Material really frames this whole phase as, well, a massive shift in identity. You aren't just a student taking a test anymore.
that's it. The shift is from test taker to expert communicator. The goal of this specific lesson from the IELTS focus is to build immediate confidence.
Right.
We want to take that warm-up section, part 1, which, usually feels like a stiff, awkward interrogation,
Yeah, and it can be really uncomfortable.
and turn it into a fluid and natural conversation.
Okay, let's get right into the first major strategy then, because this is where most people stumble right out of the gate. The source points to a specific problem for Band 6 candidates.
The one-word answer.
The one-word answer.
It's the silence killer. If the examiner asks, do you like waking up early, and you just say no, you've effectively killed the conversation.
Right, you've just put up a wall.
You forced the examiner to do all the heavy lifting to get things moving again.
Yeah.
So to hit those high bands, the IELTS focus prescribes the R technique.
RE, respond and extend.
It's a two-step reflex. Step 1 is respond. You give a direct, natural answer to the question. You don't dodge it. But step 2 is the game changer. Extend.
Okay.
You immediately provide some additional info. It could be a reason, a result, or maybe a contrast.
So the goal is short but extended.
Precisely. We're aiming for, say, 2 to 3 sentences. Enough to show fluency and maybe some complex grammar, but not so long that you start rambling.
I really want to walk through every single one of the Band 9 examples they provide. I think hearing them is the only way to really get the rhythm.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with the classic. Morning routine. The question is, do you like waking up early?
A basic answer is just no. But the Band 9 RE approach from the source would be something like, not really. I'm naturally more productive in the evening, so forcing myself to wake up early usually leaves me feeling sluggish for the rest of the day.
Okay, let's unpack that. The response, not really. That's already so much more natural than a flat no.
And then look at the extension. They used a reason productive in the evening and a result feeling sluggish. It answers the why before the examiner even have to ask.
Okay, let's do music. Do you listen to music every day?
Here's the RE version.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty much. It helps me concentrate when I'm working, especially instrumental music, because it creates a calm atmosphere without distracting me.
Yes, pretty much. I love that. It's so conversational. And the extension wasn't generic. They specified instrumental music and gave the reason.
It shows vocabulary depth without, trying too hard.
What about cooking? Do you enjoy cooking?
This is a perfect opportunity for a contrast. The answer is, to some extent. I enjoy it when I have time, but during busy weeks I tend to order food instead because it's more convenient.
To some extent is such a great phrase. It signals that the answer isn't just a simple yes or no.
Exactly. And grammatically, look what happened there. I enjoy it when I have time, but that structure shows you can handle complex sentences just effortlessly.
Social media. Do you use social media often?
The Band 9 strategy here is to admit it, but add a result, maybe a negative one. I do, although I try to limit it. If I'm not careful, I can easily waste hours scrolling, which makes me feel unproductive.
That feels very honest.
Yeah.
And if I'm not careful, that's a conditional structure just dropped right into a simple answer.
It makes the speaker sound human, you know? Not like a robot.
Okay, let's talk exercise. Do you exercise regularly?
Yes, I try to. Even a short workout helps me clear my mind and boost my energy levels for the rest of the day.
Again, the pattern is identical. The response, yes, I try to. The extension is the result. Clearing the mind, boosting energy.
It becomes rhythmic. The examiner knows what to expect, which actually makes you easier to listen to.
Reading. Do you prefer reading physical books or ebooks?
The source suggests this answer. I'd say physical books. There's something about holding a real book that makes the experience feel more immersive.
So the extension there is purely the reason, that immersive feeling.
Right. And notice they didn't just say, I like books. They said, I'd say physical books. It's a softer, more conversational choice of words.
Okay, weather. Do you prefer hot or cold weather?
I definitely prefer cooler weather. When it's too hot and humid, I find it hard to focus or even sleep properly.
A clear result extension. The heat leads to a lack of focus. Simple.
And it's relatable. You're building a little connection with the examiner.
Friends. Do you spend a lot of time with your friends?
This one is interesting because the answer notes a change over time. Not as much as I used to. We're all quite busy now, so we usually catch up on weekends instead of meeting during the week.
Not as much as I used to. That implies a whole history. It gives the answer depth.
It also shows you can control past and present tenses in the same breath.
Hometowns. Is your hometown a good place to live?
The Band 9 example is. Overall, yes. It's relatively peaceful compared to larger cities, which makes it a comfortable place to raise a family.
Relatively peaceful compared to... That's comparing and contrasting without making a big deal out of it. It just flows.
It just flows.
And finally, for this section, films. Do you like watching films at home?
Yes, I do. It's more relaxing than going to the cinema, and I can pause whenever I want, which makes the experience more flexible.
So in every single one of those examples, from the IELTS focus, the structure was identical. Direct answer, followed immediately by a because, a so, or a but.
That is the RE method. It stops the examiner from having to constantly prod you for more information. It puts you in the driver's seat.
Okay, so that's the foundation. Now moving on to the second part of this deep dive. The source material talks about native-like discourse markers.
This is the secret sauce. This is what really elevates your speech. High-band candidates use these little words or phrases to manage how their speech connects.
And to signal their attitude, right?
Exactly. It helps you avoid that textbook sound where every sentence feels stiff and, like, disjointed.
Let's walk through the specific list from the curriculum. These are the tools you use to glue your sentences together. First up, actually, and to be honest.
These are so powerful. You use them to clarify something or to give an opinion that might be a little unexpected.
Okay.
For example, back to that exercise question. Instead of just saying, no, I don't like the gym, you'd say, actually, I don't enjoy going to the gym.
It softens it. It softens the contrast.
It does. And with cooking, to be honest, not really. It signals sincerity. It tells the listener, okay, I'm dropping the formality for a second and telling you the truth.
What about well? It seems like such a throwaway word.
It's a tactical weapon for a test taker. It's a perfect filler for processing time. If you're asked about studying, saying, well, it depends on the task, buys you that split second to think without creating an awkward silence.
Okay, mind you, that one sounds very British.
It is, and it's excellent for Band 9. You use it to add a contrasting point, usually to add some nuance to what you just said, like with your hometown. Mind you, it can feel a bit boring. It shows you can see both sides of an issue instantly.
I suppose.
This one softens a claim or shows you're reflecting. If you're asked about public speaking, instead of a hard, yes, I am better now, you say, I suppose I've grown more comfortable. It sounds more humble and thoughtful.
To some extent. We saw that one in the cooking example.
Right, because it shows a balanced view. If you're asked about technology, to some extent, yes. It makes staying in touch easier. It implies there's a but coming or that the answer isn't 100% yes. Examiners love that kind of nuance.
At the end of the day,
This signals a conclusion or a natural emphasis on what really matters most for questions about money or jobs. At the end of the day, financial stability does matter. It just cuts through the noise to the main point.
as far as I'm concerned,
That is pure confidence. It expresses a stance. As far as I'm concerned, city life suits me better. It's like you're asserting ownership of the opinion.
time to think of it.
I love this one for part 1. It shows a reflective shift, like you are thinking in real time. Come to think of it, I didn't enjoy school much at first. It makes a scripted exam feel like a spontaneous chat.
It makes the examiner feel like they just unlocked a memory for you.
Exactly.
And lastly, if I'm being honest.
It's similar to be honest, it's got that confessional tone. If I'm being honest, probably more than I should when talking about social media. It creates a little bond.
So these markers actually, well, come to think of it, they're small, but they completely change the entire vibe of the answer.
They turn a list of sentences into a paragraph. They provide the texture of natural speech.
Okay, now we need to talk about the third part of this phase, handling unusual or difficult questions.
This is where candidates often panic. Part 1 isn't always about your hometown or your job. Sometimes I'll ask you about mirrors or robots or ads on buses.
And the source makes it really clear the challenge here isn't your knowledge, it's your flexibility.
Correct. The examiner doesn't actually care about your opinion on mirrors. They're testing if you can keep talking when you have nothing prepared. The strategy from the IELTS focus is simple. Admit you haven't thought about it, but keep talking. Do not freeze.
And the source gives a key phrase for this exact situation.
You should memorize this. That's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it before, but I suppose.
That's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it before, but I suppose.
That phrase is a lifeline. It buys you 5 seconds of grammatical fluency while your brain catches up and comes up with an answer.
Let's run through the specific curveball scenarios from the source. These are actual questions that trip people up. First, mirrors. Do you use mirrors often?
A Band 9 candidate might say. That's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it before, but I suppose I use them more than I realize, especially in the morning when I'm getting ready.
You see what they did? They admitted they hadn't thought about it, then just segued immediately into when they use them.
And they used, I suppose, to show their thinking in the moment.
What about robots? Do you think robots will replace humans?
This uses a think aloud strategy. That's a tricky one. I haven't given it much thought, but I'd imagine they might replace humans in repetitive jobs, though probably not in roles that require creativity.
I'd imagine probably not. Those are speculation markers.
And notice they balance the answer. Repetitive jobs versus creative jobs. That shows critical thinking on the fly.
Primary colors. Do you have a favorite primary color?
I mean, who thinks about this? So you say, I've never really considered that before. If I had to choose, I'd probably say blue, since I tend to associate it with calmness.
If I had to choose, that implies, look, I don't really have a favorite, but for the sake of this conversation, let's go with blue.
And then a simple reason. Blue equals calm. Done. Move on.
Noise. Specifically, do you like the sound of machines?
You just reflect in real time. Honestly, that's not something I've reflected on. I guess it depends. Some background noise is fine, but constant mechanical sounds can get irritating.
I guess it depends. Another classic pivot phrase. Maps. Do you like looking at maps?
Signal your surprise. That's quite an unusual question. I wouldn't say I actively enjoy it, but I do find it fascinating how maps represent the world in such a simplified way.
That's a great turn. You pivot from liking it, which might sound weird, to finding it fascinating.
It just changes the metric from enjoyment to interest.
Numbers. Do you have a favorite number?
An honest admission is best here. I can't say I've ever had one, to be honest. If anything, I might pick a number that has some personal meaning, like a birthday.
If anything, I might pick. Using those conditionals keeps you safe.
Exactly.
Shadows. Do you notice shadows?
Again, just admit you don't pay attention. I haven't paid much attention to that before. Now that you mention it, I suppose I notice them more when the sunlight is strong in the late afternoon.
Now that you mention it, that's a brilliant discourse marker for a realization.
It shows the examiner you are actually interacting with their question, not just reciting a script.
Ads on buses. Do you pay attention to ads on buses?
Use a conditional extension. That's not something I usually think about, but I guess they catch my attention if the design is eye-catching or humorous.
Pens versus pencils.
A light filler is perfect. I never really had a strong preference. I suppose I lean toward pens because they feel more permanent.
And finally, coins. Do you use coins often?
Not particularly. Now that most payments are digital, I rarely carry coins unless I know I'll need them for small purchases.
This one just explains logically why the answer is no.
Right. It's not just no, it's no because the world has changed to digital.
The common thread in all of those weird questions, from mirrors to shadows, is that the speaker never just stopped. They never just said, I don't know.
I don't know is a dead end, but I haven't thought about it, but is a bridge. It keeps the ball in the air.
So bringing this all together, we've covered the respond and extend method, we've covered the discourse markers to add flow, and we've covered the strategy for the curveballs.
And if we look at the summary from the IELTS Focus, there is one clear pro tip for Part 1 that covers all of this. Aim for answers that are 2 to 3 sentences long. That's the sweet spot.
Not one word, but not a monologue either.
Exactly. If you go too long, you risk rambling. If you go too short, you show nothing.
Okay, what about interruptions? I know a lot of candidates get incredibly nervous if the examiner cuts them off mid-sentence.
It's actually a good sign. The source reminds us that if the examiner interrupts you, it just means they've heard enough quality language to grade you, and they need to move on to keep the test on schedule.
So it's purely an administrative thing.
It's a pass. It means you were extending so well that they had to stop you. It is not a punishment.
That is a huge relief. I think people assume interruption means failure.
It's usually the opposite.
So the secret to phase 2 really isn't about impressing the examiner with big, complicated words.
No, it's about communicating with confidence and a natural rhythm. If you can master that interaction using these strategies from the IELTS Focus, you are well on your way to that Band 9.
A massive thank you to the IELTS Focus curriculum for all these insights.
Keep practicing that respond and extend. It's a game changer.
See you next time. We are jumping straight in today. We're looking at some fantastic material from the English Center, the IELTS Focus.
Yep.
And we're going right for the jugular, IELTS Speaking Part 2, the long turn.
Ah, yes. That 2-minute stretch where the examiner just stops, hands you a card, and says, your turn.
And the silence is suddenly the loudest thing you've ever heard.
It really is.
Exactly. And the material we have today isn't about, general tips. We are focusing exclusively on what the IELTS Focus calls Phase 3, the Storytelling Masterclass.
And this is so important because the central argument here is that most candidates prepare for this part completely wrong.
How so?
Well, they get the cue card right. It's got those little bullet points, what happened, when it happened, who you were with.
The checklist.
Exactly. They treat it like a shopping list. They just tick the boxes. I went to the park. It was Tuesday. I was with Bob. And then they run out of things to say in 45 seconds flat.
And they sound like they're reading a report.
A very boring report.
Yeah.
To get that Band 9.0, you have to stop answering questions and start telling a story. You need to become a storyteller.
Okay, so that starts with that 1 minute of prep time. 60 seconds. The instinct is just to scribble down as many words as you can.
And that's a huge trap, a massive trap. If you're trying to invent a whole new story from nothing in 60 seconds, you're setting yourself up to fail.
So what's the alternative?
The strategy is something called mental anchors.
Mental anchors. Okay, I like that. It sounds stable.
That's the whole idea. You walk into that exam room with, say, 8 pre-prepared, polished stories from your own life. Real memories.
Not word-for-word scripts, though. Examiners hate that.
No, never scripts. You just know the core of the story, the beats, the feeling, the key vocabulary. And these stories are so versatile, you can adapt them to fit almost any topic.
I'm skeptical. 8 stories to cover hundreds of topics. Let's test this. What's anchor number 1 from the source?
Okay, a classic one. The Watch Before University. The story is about your father giving you a meaningful watch just before you leave home for the first time.
All right, so if the card is describe a gift, that's a layup, easy. But what if it's describe a person who influenced you?
Same story. You just shift the focus. It's not about the watch anymore. It's about the father giving the watch. The watch is just a symbol of his advice and influence.
Okay. What about describe a big change in your life?
Still the same story. The watch becomes the object that anchored you during that massive transition of leaving home. You see, one story, 5 or 6 different answers.
That's actually really efficient. Okay, give me another one. Anchor 2. Quitting a stable job.
This is your big risk-taking anchor. It's a story about leaving a safe but boring job to pursue something you're passionate about.
So that covers a difficult decision, a risk you took.
A challenge you overcame, a time you were ambitious. You're not just talking about a job. You're talking about fear, courage, and transformation.
It's about the emotion, not the event itself. I'm starting to see a pattern. Anchor 3, traveling alone for the first time.
That's your independence anchor. It hits a meaningful holiday, sure, but also a time you were brave, a problem you solved alone, or a cultural experience.
Okay, what about anchor 6? This one seems risky. A time you failed. Do you really want to talk about failing in a high-stakes exam?
Oh, absolutely. The IELTS Focus says this is a power move. Everyone tells success stories. Talking about failing an exam, messing up an interview shows incredible maturity.
And it lets you use more complex language, I guess. Regret, lessons learned.
Precisely. It works for a mistake you made, a challenge, a disappointment. It's a strong narrative because it has real conflict.
So the big takeaway here is if you're preparing, your first job isn't to practice hundreds of topics. It's to perfect these 8 core stories from your own life.
Exactly. Polish them. Know them inside and out. Because if you have your mental anchors ready, you're not using that 1 minute to panic about what to say. You're using it to think about how you're going to say it.
Which is the perfect lead-in to the next part of the source material. Structure. You have your story about the watch. How do you actually structure it to hit the Band 9 grammar requirements?
This is where the narrative arc comes in. The source is so clear about this. If you just list events in the simple past tense, I got the watch. I said, thank you. I left home. You are putting a ceiling on your score.
Because you're not showing any grammatical range.
None at all.
Yeah.
To hit the top bands, you have to demonstrate that you can control different tenses. So the IELTS Focus recommends a simple 3-part structure for every single story.
Okay, what are the 3 parts?
Part 1 is the background. This is the first, say, 30 to 40 seconds. You're setting the scene.
Right.
But, and this is the crucial part, you use the past perfect or past continuous. You don't say, I planned a trip. You say, I've been planning this trip for months.
Ah, I see. So you're creating a timeline before the main event even starts.
You got it. It adds depth.
Yeah.
Then you move to part 2, the event.
Hmm.
This is the main action, maybe 50 to 60 seconds.
And here you switch tenses.
Yep. Now you use the past simple for impact, but you fill it with vivid sensory language. When I opened the box, the watch gleamed. My hands were shaking.
And the final part.
The reflection. The last 30 or 40 seconds, this is the so what of your story. You connect it to the present and future using the present perfect or future forms.
Like, that experience has shaped who I am today.
Exactly that. Let's walk through one of the Band 9 examples from the text. For a memorable trip, listen for the tense shifts.
Okay, I'm listening.
Background. I had been planning that trip to the mountains for what felt like forever. I'd been saving up for nearly a year. See? Past perfect continuous.
Had been planning, had been saving.
Got it.
You know.
Now, the event. When we finally arrived, the air felt so crisp. We hiked to the summit, and the silence was absolute. Simple, punchy, descriptive.
And the reflection.
Reflection. Looking back, that experience has completely changed my perspective. In the future, I hope to do more trips like that.
Present perfect and a future form. Wow. That is so much more complete than just a chronological list. It feels like a mini-movie.
It is. And there's a little advanced upgrade the source mentions here. A micro-transition.
Ooh, what's that?
It's a sentence you drop in just before the main event to build a bit of suspense. The example they give is gold. Little did I know that this seemingly ordinary day would end up being one of the most transformative experiences of my life.
Oh, that is slick. Little did I know. That's basically a signal to the examiner to pay attention.
It's a total power move.
Okay, so we have the anchors for content and the arc for structure. But a story is only as good as the words you use. Let's talk about vocabulary.
Yes. The main point here is to stop using vague, boring words. The difference between a Band 6 and a Band 9 is specificity. It's about using sensory details.
The source has these great, instead of X, use Y lists. Let's do a quick round. I'll give you the common Band 6 word, and you give me the Band 9 upgrade.
Let's do it.
Okay, describing a place, everyone says it was busy.
Instead say, it was a hive of activity. Or, it was teeming with people.
Teeming? That's a great word. What if a place was quiet?
Not just quiet, it was incredibly tranquil. Or my personal favorite, it was tucked away off the beaten track.
I love that. Okay, the view was beautiful.
The scenery was absolutely breathtaking.
Let's do feelings. I was happy.
I was absolutely exhilarated. Or, I was over the moon.
I was nervous.
I was on edge, or my heart was pounding, much more physical.
And surprised.
I was genuinely taken aback.
The last one. Let's do food. It tasted good. That's so generic.
You could say it was rich and full of flavor, or it was comfort food at its finest.
See, you're not just giving facts. You're putting the listener or the examiner in the scene with you. That's the key.
That's the entire game.
But we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The panic. You're telling your story, you're using your great vocabulary, and you look up and realize you've only spoken for 1 minute and 20 seconds. What do?
And the examiner's just staring at you, waiting. It's the worst feeling. That's where people start repeating themselves. So, yeah, it was a really good trip. I liked it.
Oh, disaster.
But the IELTS Focus, has a specific lifeline for this. It's an expansion strategy called compare with the past.
How does that work?
If you finish early, your story is done. Don't add more to it. Instead, you pivot. You start comparing your past self to your present self. You use phrases like, if I had experienced this 5 years ago.
Oh, that's clever, because it forces you to use complex grammar like conditional sentences while you fill the time.
Ginkgo. It's a win-win. You're not just waffling, you're adding a layer of deep reflection. The source gives 10 examples of this.
Okay, let's hear one. Say the topic was travel and you finish early.
You'd add on.
Yeah.
Back then, I just cared about taking photos for social media, but now I realize I value the quiet moments of just being there.
You're showing personal growth? What about for a decision?
5 years ago, I would have definitely played it safe. Now, I understand that you have to take calculated risks.
And for a failure.
If I hadn't failed that exam, I honestly don't think I would have developed the resilience I have today.
There it is, the third conditional. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have. That is examiner gold right there.
It's a perfect way to add another 20 or 30 seconds of high-quality, high-scoring language.
So if we pull back, this Phase 3 system from the IELTS Focus is a complete game plan.
It really is. It solves all the common problems. What do I say? Use your mental anchors. How do I structure it? Use the narrative arc. What words do I use? Use sensory vocabulary. What if I finish early? Use the past comparison technique.
It turns a test of pure improvisation into a test of execution. You've already done the hard work before you even walk in the room.
And that's the ultimate confidence booster. When you know you have a story for any topic, the fear just melts away, and your fluency naturally goes up.
The source ends on one last really crucial point about the cue card itself.
Yes. The bullet points on the card are suggestions. They are not laws.
You don't have to be a slave to them.
Not at all. The examiner is grading your language, not whether you ticked every single box. If you tell an amazing story that uses brilliant vocabulary and complex grammar, but you forget to say who you were with, you're still getting a band 9.
So it all comes down to one final thought.
Tell a story.
Don't just answer the question. Tell a story that only you can tell.
That's the secret.
That's our deep dive into the IELTS Focus method. If you are prepping for the exam, go back, listen to those anchor ideas, and start building your own. Good luck. Okay. We are bypassing all the usual pleasantries today and jumping straight into our source material.
Right in.
We've got an advanced lesson here from the English Center, the IELTS Focus. And our mission is extremely specific.
Very focused.
We're not looking at the whole exam. We are zooming right in on IELTS Speaking Band 9.0 and focusing exclusively on what their curriculum calls Phase 4.
Phase 4, yes. This is the section of their guide that's all about mastering Part 3 of the exam.
And the source makes a pretty bold claim right at the start. It calls Part 3 the deciding round.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah. I mean, think about the structure of the test. Part 1, that's just a warm-up. You're having a chat.
Right.
Part 2 is a monologue you can largely prepare for. But Part 3, that's where the examiner really pushes you.
Pushes you how?
They want to see if your English breaks down under pressure or if you can maintain high-level thinking in a second language.
And this is where the source gets really clear about the mindset shift you have to make. To get that band 9.0, it says you have to stop talking about yourself.
Which is the hardest part for almost everyone. For, 10 minutes, you've been answering questions like, what do you do? Or describe a time you were happy. It's all I.
And then suddenly you have to pivot.
You do. You have to stop talking about your life and start talking about society as a whole.
This is what the guide calls the global perspective shift.
Precisely. You are no longer the protagonist of your story. You're the narrator, the observer, looking at the world.
So let's break down exactly how you're supposed to make that shift. We're going to cover this global perspective, then the structure of logic.
The Peel method.
Exactly, the Peel method. And then we'll get into the high-level grammar, what they call the Band 9 Polish.
Okay, let's start with Phase 4.1, the global perspective shift.
So the text points out a really specific mistake that keeps people stuck. Stuck at, a band 6. It's the anecdote trap.
Right. This happens all the time. The examiner asks a big abstract question, something like, how has shopping changed in your country? And the band 6 instinct is to shrink that huge question down to something they know.
Something manageable.
Totally.
Right.
They immediately start talking about their own life. They'll say, well, my brother buys a lot of sneakers online, or my mom loves going to the market.
Because that's safe. You know what your brother does. You don't have to think too hard.
Exactly. It's comfortable. But it is not Band 9. A Band 9 candidate generalizes. They don't talk about my brother. They talk about the population or modern society.
Let's use the specific examples from the IELTS focus.
Yeah.
Because the contrast is, well, it's really stark. So, topic. Consumerism. A typical Band 6 answer might be, I think people shop more because my friends love buying clothes.
See? That's totally anecdotal. It's just about your social circle. The source upgrades this to a Band 9 by just zooming out completely.
What does that sound like?
The expert version says, it is widely observed that modern society has become increasingly consumer-driven, largely due to the pervasiveness of targeted advertising on social media platforms.
Wow. Okay, that is a massive difference. Let's unpack that a bit. It starts with, it is widely observed that, instead of, I think.
That's the first move. You're not just giving a personal opinion. You are stating a societal observation. It sounds so much more objective.
And the cause. It's not, my friends love clothes. It's the pervasiveness of targeted advertising. You're analyzing the system, not the person.
That's the key. You're treating the topic like a social phenomenon. You're looking at the bigger mechanics of why things happen.
Here's another one on technology. The weak example is, my parents use their phones a lot. I feel like I've heard that exact sentence 1,000 times.
And you know what? In part 1, that would be totally fine. But in part 3, it's just too simple. The Band 9 upgrade here is, there's been a noticeable shift toward digital dependency across generations, particularly as smartphones have become integral to both professional and social life.
Digital dependency across generations, that sounds so much more authoritative.
It does. And notice, no parents. It says generations. It universalizes the experience. It turns a little family story into a sociological comment.
The source lists a few more of these quick shifts. Let's talk education. Instead of saying, my cousin studies abroad because it's better, what does a Band 9 speaker do?
They'd say something like, an increasing number of students are pursuing education overseas, primarily in search of globally recognized qualifications.
Globally recognized qualifications. That's a great phrase to just have in your back pocket. And for urban life, instead of the simple, my city is crowded,
You'd go with, rapid urbanization has led to densely populated metropolitan areas where infrastructure development often struggles to keep pace.
Infrastructure development often struggles to keep pace. That describes the problem so much more accurately than just, it's crowded.
It does, and it uses high-level vocabulary, but naturally. And look, it's not just about memorizing big words. It's a formula. The source material actually gives you a quick upgrade formula.
I love a good cheat sheet. How does it work?
It's basically a substitution game. So whenever you feel yourself about to say, my friends do X, you stop and you swap it for, it is increasingly common for people too.
Okay, so my friends play video games a lot becomes, it is increasingly common for people to engage in digital entertainment.
Exactly. Or if you're about to say, in my country, which feels really limited, you swap it for across urban societies or maybe in highly industrialized nations, you just broaden the scope.
It's like you're putting on a different hat. You take off the friend hat and put on the analyst hat.
That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
You are an observer of the world for part 3.
Okay, so we zoomed out. We have the global perspective, but having these big ideas is one thing. Organizing them so you don't sound like you're just rambling is another.
A big problem.
So the source moves us into phase 4.2, the structure of logic. And it introduces an acronym, PEAL.
PEAL, P-E-L. And this is so important because when you start talking about big ideas like urbanization, it's really easy to get lost in the weeds. PEAL keeps you on track.
So what does it stand for?
It's point, explanation, example, and link.
Seems straightforward, but I bet that example part is where people can get tripped up again. Let's walk through an example. Consumerism again. Let's say the question is, why do people buy so many unnecessary things?
Okay, so step 1 is the point. You state your main argument, clearly.
Yeah.
I would argue that modern consumer culture plays a central role.
Sure. Sharp. I like it. Now, step 2, explanation. Why is that?
This is largely because advertising constantly creates artificial needs.
Artificial needs. Great phrase. Okay, now step 3 is the example, and this is the key, right? The source warns you not to go back to my brother here.
Exactly.
Oh.
Just because it says example doesn't mean it have to be personal. It should be a general example. So the text says something like, in many urban societies, people are exposed to targeted marketing on social media platforms.
So it's a specific scenario targeted marketing, but you're applying it broadly to urban societies. And finally, step 4, link. You have to tie it all back.
You do. So as a result, consumption becomes normalized rather than necessity-driven.
That is so clean. It flows perfectly from the point to the proof and back to the conclusion.
It's cohesive. And coherence is one of the 4 main scoring criteria. If you just throw out ideas randomly, your score goes down. Peel forces you to be coherent.
Let's do one more just to lock it in. Topic: education. Should schools focus more on practical skills?
Okay, let's build it. Point. Practical skills definitely deserve more emphasis. Explanation. Academic knowledge doesn't always equal real-world readiness.
And the general example?
Graduates often struggle with things like financial management despite having strong theoretical backgrounds. See? No specific person just graduates as a general group.
And the link.
Therefore, a balanced curriculum is what produces better-rounded individuals.
It really feels like you're closing a loop.
It creates a sense of completion. The examiner knows exactly where your argument starts and where it ends. It stops that awkward moment where you just stop talking and hope they interrupt.
We've all been there. Okay, so we've got the perspective and the structure. Let's add some nuance. Phase 4.3 is about concession and refutation.
This is a huge marker for the high bands. Band 6 candidates, they tend to give really one-sided answers. Remote work is good. Pollution is bad.
Black and white.
Totally. But the world isn't black and white, and a Band 9 candidate shows they know that. They show critical thinking.
The Force calls this acknowledging there are 2 sides to every coin.
Exactly. And there's a specific sentence structure the guide recommends for this. It's the while, however, structure.
Okay, let's use the remote work example because most people just say, I love working from home, it's so flexible.
Right. But a Band 9 speaker argues both sides. They'd say, while it is true that remote work offers unprecedented flexibility, it is equally important to recognize the potential for social isolation among employees.
That sounds so much more sophisticated. You're giving a nod to the other side, while it is true X, before you make your main point.
It's balanced. You aren't just reacting to the question, you're evaluating the topic.
The text also has this great idiom for technology topics, the double-edged sword.
Oh, examiners love this one, if you use it correctly, of course. It's perfect for anything that has clear pros and cons.
Give me the example from the source.
Okay, so technology is something of a double-edged sword. It enhances productivity, yet it can also diminish face-to-face interaction.
Enhances productivity, yet diminishes interaction. You get the positive and the negative in one complex sentence.
And you can apply that to so many topics. AI is a double-edged sword. Improves efficiency, but threatens job security. Tourism boosts economies, but strains local infrastructure.
It's a very versatile tool. Shows you can hold 2 opposing ideas in your head at once.
Which is pretty much the definition of advanced language use.
All right, moving to phase 4.4. This is about speculating on the future.
This is another place where people get into trouble because they try to be fortune tellers. They say things like, I am sure that robots will take all our jobs.
And the guide says, don't do that.
Please don't. You're not a psychic. And in any kind of academic context, being absolutely certain just sounds naive. Band 9 speakers use what's called speculative language. They talk in probabilities.
So what are the key phrases you should be using instead of, I am sure?
Things like, it is highly probable that, or I foresee a future where, or even, there's a distinct possibility that.
So let's apply that to AI.
Instead of AI will automate everything, you say. It is highly probable that artificial intelligence will automate many routine tasks.
Or for education.
I foresee a future where hybrid learning models become the norm.
It sounds safer, actually. You're not making this wild claim. You're making a calculated prediction.
It's safer and it's more accurate. It protects you from being wrong, which is always nice.
Now, there's a pro tip in this section that I really love. What do you do if the examiner asks you about something you know absolutely nothing about? Like, how does space exploration affect the global economy? And you've never thought about that in your life.
The nightmare scenario. But the source gives you a lifeline. The layman's perspective.
How does that work?
You admit you're not an expert, but you use that admission to your advantage. You say something like, well, I'm not exactly an expert in this field. But from a layman's perspective, I would say.
From a layman's perspective. That's brilliant. It buys you time, it lowers the expectation for specific facts, but you're still showing off your vocabulary.
Exactly. You're showing you can communicate complex ideas even when you don't have all the technical knowledge, and that's fluency.
Okay, so we've covered the big perspective shift, the logic, the nuance, and the speculation. Now we get to phase 5. This is the final layer, the Band 9 Polish.
This is the icing on the cake, really. These are the specific grammatical moves that tell an examiner, I am not just correct, I am sophisticated.
The first one is nominalization. That sounds terrifyingly technical.
It sounds scary, but the concept is actually pretty simple. It just means turning verbs actions into nouns concepts. It gives your speech that academic weight.
Okay, so let's hear the difference. The source has a Band 6 example. People move to cities quickly.
Right, that's very verb heavy. Move, it's an action. The Band 9 version uses nominalization and says, the rapid urbanization of the population.
Ah, okay, so move became urbanization.
Exactly. Let's try another. Band 6, people depend on technology.
Band 9.
The growing dependence on digital technology.
Dependence. So you're turning the action itself into a concept you can discuss.
You got it. Instead of factories pollute the air, you say industrial emissions. Instead of people consume too much, you talk about overconsumption. It just sounds more objective and, well, smarter.
Next up for polish. Emphasis via inversion. I love this one. It sounds so dramatic.
It is dramatic. You're just reversing the normal word order to make a point stronger. Normally, we say subject-verb like we rarely see this. Inversion flips it.
And rarely do we see.
Exactly. Rarely do we see such a dramatic shift in public opinion.
It really grabs your attention.
It does. Another great one is with not only, so instead of saying this policy reduces costs and it improves efficiency, you use inversion and say,
not only does this policy reduce costs, but it also improves efficiency.
perfect. It just adds a rhythm to your speech that basic grammar doesn't have.
Okay, the third polishing tool is cleft sentences. This is all about focus, right?
Yes. A cleft sentence splits your information to tell the listener exactly what the most important part is. It usually starts with what?
So instead of a flat sentence like, rising prices concern me,
You say, what concerns me most is the rising cost of living.
it's like putting a spotlight on it. What concerns me most is...
Or you can use, it is. Instead of mass tourism destroys culture, you say, it is mass tourism that often leads to the erosion of local traditions.
It sounds so much more deliberate, like you're really driving a point home.
And that's what part 3 is about. It's not just a chat, it's an argument. You're building a case.
And finally, the last tool in the kit, hedging. This goes back to what we said about not being too absolute.
Right. Band 6 is absolute. Social media is bad. Band 9 is always nuanced. You hedge.
So how do you fix a sentence like social media is bad?
You'd say something like, it is arguably the case that social media can have a detrimental impact, depending on parental supervision.
It is arguably the case, can have, depending on...
You're adding all these layers of conditionality. You're showing that you get that the world is complex. It's not a blanket statement. It's a measured assessment.
It's the difference between a hot take and a real thesis.
Precisely.
So looking back at this whole IELTS focus source, it really is a journey of maturity, isn't it?
That's the best way I can think to describe it. You start the exam as a person just chatting about your hobbies. But by part 3, you have to evolve.
You move from the personal to the global.
You move from just rambling to using the Peel structure.
You go from these one-sided opinions to concession and refutation.
And then at the end, you polish it all up with things like nominalization, inversion, and hedging.
It seems like a lot, but when you break it down into these specific tools, it feels manageable. It's not about being a genius. It's about having the right toolkit.
Absolutely. You don't need to be an expert on the global economy. You just need the linguistic structure to sound like one. You need to practice these specific shifts. Swapping, my friend, for society. Swapping is for, it is arguably the case that.
So that's the takeaway for you today. Don't just practice answering questions. Practice these specific maneuvers. Take a simple thought and try to band 9 it.
Turn people buy stuff into consumerism is a primary driver of modern economies. That's the homework.
And remember, this is your shortcut. You don't have to memorize a whole dictionary. You just have to master these patterns.
Rarely do we see such a clear roadmap to a high score.
Huh. Nice use of inversion there.
I try my best.
All right, that is our deep dive on the IELTS speaking phase 4. Go practice your nominalizations and get that band 9.
Good luck. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're working directly from the materials provided by the IELTS Focus English Center, and we're skipping right to the end game.
We really are.
We're tackling what they call Phase 5, the Band 9 Polish.
This is the final frontier, really. This isn't about just being understood. This is for that learner who's already good, who's already correct, but wants to sound sophisticated.
Right, and the IELTS Focus makes this really this brilliant distinction right at the start. They say a Band 6 speaker describes events, this happened, then that happened. But a Band 9 speaker analyzes systems.
Exactly. It's a total mindset shift. One is telling a story. The other is explaining the machinery behind that story. You're looking for nuance, for emphasis. You're adding what the source calls academic weight.
So for our deep dive today, we're going to unpack the 5 specific maneuvers the IELTS Focus lays out for this. We have nominalization, inversion, cleft sentences, hedging, and phonological subtlety.
These are the tools that take you from just speaking English to really commanding it.
Okay, let's start with the first one, which I have to admit sounds a little intimidating. Nominalization. They call it the academic sound.
It does sound technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's the process of changing verbs, action, words into nouns, which are concepts.
So why would you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that just make a sentence more clunky?
It makes it denser, and that's exactly the point. It creates a density of meaning. When you use a lot of verbs, you sound like you're narrating people did this and then they did that.
Right.
When you switch to these concept nouns, you sound objective, you sound authoritative, you stop talking about what people are doing, and you start analyzing the phenomenon.
The source material has some great examples that really show this. Let's take urbanization. A standard Band 6 sentence would be something like, people move to cities quickly.
Simple. Correct. Totally fine. But listen to the Band 9 version with nominalization. The rapid urbanization of the population has placed unprecedented pressure on local infrastructure.
Wow. Okay. So move quickly just became rapid urbanization.
Precisely. You took the action moving and turned it into the concept of urbanization. Now, that concept is the subject, and you can talk about its effects, like the pressure on infrastructure.
You're not talking about a family moving anymore. You're analyzing a huge societal trend.
Exactly. Here's another one on education. Band 6 might be, students compete more so they feel stressed.
And the Band 9 version.
Increased academic competition has contributed to rising levels of student stress.
I see it. Compete becomes competition. Feel stressed becomes levels of student stress. It takes the personal feeling out and makes it a systemic observation.
That's the goal. That's phase 5. Let's try one with technology. So instead of people depend on technology, which is very direct.
Okay, let me see. The notes say, the growing dependence on digital technology has reshaped interpersonal communication.
There you go. Depend becomes dependence. And notice the verb, too. It's not just changed things, it's reshaped them. Better nouns pull better verbs along with them.
This one on social media is perfect. The Band 6 is something everyone says. People compare themselves to others too much.
And the Band 9 analysis.
Constant exposure to curated lifestyles has intensified social comparison.
Social comparison. That phrase does so much work, it turns a bad habit into a recognized psychological concept.
It really does. And it's not just looking at phones, it's constant exposure to curated lifestyles. That's so much more precise.
It is. Okay, one more, because these are so important. Crime. The simple version, people lose jobs, so crime increases. Very A to B.
Right, but the Band 9 version sees the whole system.
Yes, it would be. Rising unemployment has led to an escalation in crime rates. Escalation is such a powerful, precise noun there.
And unemployment is the abstract concept, not just people losing jobs.
Now, the source also points to what it calls the elite combination. This is where you put nominalization together with concession.
So that's using words like while or although to acknowledge another side of the argument.
Exactly. And when you mix that with these heavy nouns, you get something like this. While technological advancement has driven economic growth, the rapid digitization of daily life has also led to increased social isolation.
That's the beast of a sentence. But
Yeah.
It's so clear. You've got advancement, growth, digitization, isolation. It's just packed with ideas.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
You're showing you can juggle multiple abstract concepts in one smooth structure. You're weighing things, not just listing them.
Okay, let's move on. Maneuver number 2. Emphasis via inversion. The notes call this a power move.
It really is a power move. Inversion is fascinating. You're deliberately breaking the normal subject, verb, object, word order of English.
To what end?
To create emphasis, you put the auxiliary verb before the subject, and it immediately grabs the listener's attention because the rhythm is just different. It's unexpected.
It signals a very high level of grammatical control.
Near native control, yes. Let's look at the rarely or seldom structure. A normal sentence is, we rarely see a change like this.
But with inversion.
You pull rarely to the front. Rarely do we see such a dramatic shift in public opinion.
Rarely do we see. Yeah, it forces you to lean in and listen to what's next. It sounds much more formal, more oratorical.
It creates a bit of suspense. Another huge one is not only, but also, this is a classic one.
Oh, so?
Many students get this wrong. They'll say, not only the internet is useful, but it also fast. They keep the normal word order. For Band 9, you have to invert it.
So, using the example from the source, not only has the internet transformed communication, but it has also reshaped global commerce.
Exactly. Not only has the internet, that little flip of the words is the whole game. It shows you're manipulating English syntax, not just translating in your head.
There's a very dramatic one here. Under no circumstances.
Oh, that's a strong one. Under no circumstances should governments ignore environmental degradation. It sounds like a policy statement. It's incredibly authoritative.
And what about only after or only when?
That's great for showing a condition, for instance. Only when it is lost do people truly recognize its value. Again, notice the do people. The inversion puts all the focus on the condition. The loss has to happen first.
The last one here is little did. It feels a bit like something from a story.
It can be, but it's perfect for part 3 when you're talking about, say, unforeseen consequences. Little did policymakers anticipate the cultural implications of globalization. It adds a layer of sophisticated hindsight.
Now, the source has a big warning label on this one. It says use it maybe once per long answer.
Oh, that's critical. If you start saying, rarely do I eat breakfast, not only am I tired, but also I am hungry, you sound ridiculous.
Right.
It's a spice. You use it to make your most important point of the answer really land. It's for emphasis, not for every sentence.
Precision, not performance. Got it. Okay, topic 3, cleft sentences. This is about splitting a sentence to direct attention.
Right. Cleft just means split. You're basically shining a spotlight on one piece of information.
Yeah.
It shows you're prioritizing your thoughts logically, not just saying whatever comes to mind first.
And there are 2 main types here, the what cleft and the it cleft. Let's start with what.
The what cleft is brilliant for sharing concerns or opinions. So instead of just saying, I'm worried about the cost of living,
You'd say, what concerns me most is the rising cost of living, rather than the lack of job opportunities.
yes. It immediately tells the examiner that you've considered multiple things and you've selected the most important one. It sets up your whole point.
Let's look at another one, for technology. What makes technology so appealing is the convenience it offers.
See how much more deliberate that sounds than technology is appealing because it's convenient. It sounds like a conclusion you've arrived at.
And for education. What schools often fail to prioritize is the development of practical life skills.
That's a powerful way to frame a critique. You're not just complaining, you're identifying a very specific point of failure in a system.
So what about the it cleft?
The it cleft uses it is or it was to really pinpoint a cause or a culprit. From the source, on the environment, it is unchecked industrial expansion that has accelerated environmental degradation.
I see. So you're saying this is the thing, not something else. This specific thing is the cause.
Exactly. It removes all ambiguity. It is social media that, or it is the government's policy that. It's incredibly useful for making a clear, direct point.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to topic 4, mastering hedging. Now, hedging can sometimes sound like you're avoiding an answer.
In everyday life, maybe.
Right.
But in academic communication, and for a Band 9, it's about nuance and intellectual honesty. Absolute statements are actually a sign of simplistic thinking. The world is complex, right?
Sure.
A Band 6 speaker might say, social media is bad. Full stop.
And a Band 9 speaker.
A Band 9 speaker would say something like, it is arguably the case that social media can have a detrimental impact, depending on.
Arguably the case.
Yeah.
Can have, depending
Yeah.
on. That's a lot of softening.
It's not softening, it's precision. It makes your argument stronger because it's harder to attack. If you say, social media is bad, I just have to find one good thing about it, and your whole statement falls apart.
But if you say it can be detrimental,
You're still right. Your argument is now bulletproof.
the source breaks hedging down into a few categories. First, softening opinions. Things like, it would appear that.
It could be argued that. Look at the example for crime. It would appear that incarceration alone may not effectively address the root causes of crime. You're not shouting, prisons don't work. You're presenting a measured, evidence-based observation.
Then there's limiting scope. Phrases like, in many cases, or by and large.
By and large is a fantastic phrase. It just means generally. By and large, technological progress has improved our lives. It acknowledges there might be exceptions without getting bogged down in them.
And the last one is expressing probability. there is a tendency for, or it is likely that.
Right. There is a growing tendency for employees to prioritize productivity over personal well-being. You're identifying a trend. You're not stating it as a fact for every single person. It creates that academic distance we talked about.
It all connects back. And of course, there's another elite combination here.
The trifecta. Hedging, concession, and nominalization all in one.
Okay, let's hear it.
Something like this. While it could be argued that technological advancement has brought convenience, there is a growing concern that our over-reliance may be eroding community bonds.
Wow. Let's break that down. It could be argued is the hedge. Technological advancement and over-reliance are nominalizations.
And the while sets up the concession. You're layering all these skills. It sounds incredibly sophisticated compared to technology's good, but it makes us lonely.
It's a completely different level of communication.
It's the language of analysis versus the language of opinion.
All right, we've covered the words, the grammar, the structure. Now for the final piece, how it all sounds. Topic 5, phonological subtlety.
And the source is crystal clear on this. Band 9 pronunciation is not about your accent. It doesn't matter if you sound British, American, Australian, or anything else.
So what is it about then?
It's about the music of the language, the rhythm, the stress, the flow.
First up is something called the schwa.
The schwa. It's the most common sound in English. It's that little lazy sound like the A in about. A lower band speaker often overpronounces everything. They'll say, computer.
Right, pronouncing every vowel.
But a native-like speaker reduces the unstressed vowels to a schwa, so it becomes cum-pyu-t. That reduction is what gives English its natural rhythm. It lets the important stressed syllables pop.
The source also mentions reducing little function words like to, for, of.
Yes, you'd never say, I'm going to the store. You say, I'm going to this store. If you stress those little grammatical words, the rhythm gets all choppy, and it's actually harder for the listener to follow.
Okay, next is chunking.
This is massive for fluency. Chunking is about grouping words into thought groups instead of speaking word by word, like a robot.
So a Band 9 speaker would group them.
They'd group them, for example. It is widely observed that modern society has become increasingly consumer-driven. Those little pauses, they give the listener's brain a moment to process each chunk of meaning.
It sounds much more confident, like you know where your sentence is going.
Because you do. You're thinking in ideas, not just individual words.
And finally, intonation. Using tone to show your attitude.
This is subtle, but so powerful. A falling tone at the end of a sentence signals completion, confidence. That is ultimately the main concern. The pitch drops. It says, end of point. I am certain.
And a rising tone.
A little rise can show you're reflecting or maybe a bit skeptical. It could be beneficial to some extent. That slight upward tilt invites discussion. It's less final.
The source summarizes this perfectly. It says Band 9 delivery sounds like thinking out loud confidently.
That's it. It's not a performance. It's not theater. It's just the natural, effortless sound of an intelligent mind working through an idea in English.
So, to recap, we've covered nominalization to analyze systems, inversion for power moves, clefs to create focus, hedging for nuance, and all the musicality of phonology.
It's the whole package. And the goal of what the IELTS focus is teaching here isn't just to pass a test. It's to actually transform you into a more sophisticated communicator.
Right. It's not a trick. It's an upgrade to your entire linguistic operating system.
Exactly. When you internalize these tools, you don't just sound better. You think more clearly in English. You become more precise, more persuasive.
So for everyone listening, a final piece of advice might be, don't try to master all 5 at once. Just pick one. Maybe start with hedging.
That's a great place to start. The next time you want to say something is good, stop yourself. Try. It could be argued that it has several benefits, just that one small change.
It's been a really fascinating deep dive into what makes elite communication tick. Thank you for walking us through the Band 9 Polish from the IELTS Focus.
My pleasure. It's always a joy to break down the art of language.
And to our listener, start practicing. Find the music in the language. We'll see you on the next deep dive.